It's October as Burkina Faso marks the second anniversary of the coup that brought to power Africa's most loved and vibrant leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
So today, you guys, we will be discussing one of the most requested videos that we had, which is over the leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But he is the African president that is defying the West, in my opinion, like we've never seen before, at least not in the past 50 years. He's a 34-year-old soldier turned statesman or president, has expelled the French, as well known as it is, warned the Russians that he's not up for the next trap, and has pushed back against the Chinese debt traps that they're bringing here on the continent of Africa. So today we'll talk about who Ibrahim Traoré is, what is his vision, how did he come to power, and why are foreign powers plotting to remove him from power. So Ibrahim was born in 1988 in Bondakoy, a small town in Burkina Faso's Mohon province. Traoré grew up witnessing the effects of colonialism, such as poverty, corruption, and foreign interference in Burkina Faso's government. He studied geology at a place I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but he went to university for geology, where he joined radical student groups advocating for Pan-Africanism and sovereignty. In the military, he joined the Artillery Corps and gained a reputation for being extremely disciplined and a political thinker. Now, the key turning point in Ibrahim's life was on September 30th, 2022. Traoré led a coup d'etat that removed Lieutenant Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba after he failed to stop jihadist violence in Burkina Faso. And if you guys don't know, West Africa, even Eastern, pretty much all of Africa, especially the Sahel region, is a hotbed for extremism, for Islamic terrorism. People like Al-Shabaab, ISIS, Boko Haram, Nigeria, they're all very much, it's in some countries, they even have more control over the country than the actual government does itself. So for somebody like himself to come around and try to actually fix this and do something about it, this is a big deal. Disclaimer, Austin is not Islamic. I'm not Christian. I'm not anything, actually. So I am not taking any sides on any religious, political, or anything. This is just me reporting. Make sure you subscribe and like the video. This was not seen as a power grab or just another typical coup d'etat. It was seen as a political reset that was much needed for Burkina Faso. Now, Traoré does not see democracy as a necessary government structure in Burkina Faso. He just sees it as a way for the West to control the continent of Africa. His vision mirrors Thomas Sankara for dignity, total independence, and anti-imperialism. Now, some core reforms that were already implemented since Ibrahim became the president of Burkina Faso was the nationalization of the mining industry in Burkina Faso. If you guys don't know, the gold mines were actually owned by foreigners instead of the actual locals themselves. And this is a problem across the continent of Africa, where a lot of outsiders, they don't usually own everything, but they usually own too much, more than the country does, and it doesn't benefit the country at all. He took back Burkina Faso's gold mines from multinational companies such as Endeavour Mining and placed them under the SOPAMIB, which is a state-run mining corporation in Burkina Faso. So basically, he reversed everything and put it the way how it should have been, similar to what Gaddafi did in Libya. He also implemented public sector pay cuts, where all ministers in the government, including himself, got a 30-cent reduction in their salary. Now, I don't know exactly why he may have done this, but I'm assuming, using my common sense, that he did it to show the public that he's just not another corrupt politician looking to steal all the money, as I've said before. He's somebody that's showing that, hey, we don't need the money. We just actually want to take control, and then maybe we'll get the money later. He has also done military expansion in Burkina Faso by creating rapid response forces, bought drones, helicopters, and rebuilt outposts in jihadist zones. So basically, essentially like military bases to control those regions that were overtaken by the jihadists. Now, something that I find interesting is he did a little bit of justice reform, where he launched prison labor programs that reduce sentences in exchange for agricultural work, which is something similar to what we have in the United States. And to say that he doesn't like democracy, that is a kind of similar playbook that they use in the United States. It's not always agriculture, but they have them digging ditches, they used to make license plates. They have prisoners do work, for free, essentially, free slavery, basically. And I'm not saying what he's doing is free slavery, but this is also seen in the Soviet Union with the gulags and Mao Zedong's China. But I doubt that is anything similar to that. It's just what pops up to mind whenever I see a shorter, except in those countries that I just named, like the United States, Soviet Union, and China, they did not reduce your sentence. You still serve the same sentence, you're just required to work as you do it. Changes to the Constitution in 2024 that he also made was French was no longer an official language, just the working language. Just like here in Kenya, Swahili is the official language, but the language of business is going to be English. I think that's similar to what he's doing in Burkina Faso. He also abolished the High Court of Justice, which was often used to silence revolutionary leaders, which would be somebody like himself. So he's weeding out the corruption in the government to make it a more politically stable country for people to come and live in, and for the locals that are already there to live in. Now, one of the most important things, let's talk about the relationship with Russia and China, essentially the new neocolonialism that is sweeping through Africa, that has been here for about 2 decades or more now. But it seems that Ibrahim is taking more of a strategic stance to this policy making that he's making with these foreign nations. Essentially, he's not falling into the old trap of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In this sense, the enemy of the West would be countries like Russia, China, North Korea, and saying, oh, well, the West is pretty much controlling us and I don't like them, but I know y'all don't like them. So I'm just going to work with y'all and go whatever y'all do. He's still realizing that there still is, as I've always said, a deeper political motive. So although he's completely distancing himself from the West, he's still moving cautiously with these other two superpowers. So with Russia, in 2023, Traoré attended the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg, Russia, where he delivered an anti-imperialistic speech applauded across the continent. And I remember seeing this.
Est un continent affamé. Et comment se fait-il que les chefs d'État traversent donc le monde à mendier? Voici des questions que nous nous posons et que nous n'avons pas de réponse jusque-là.
Russia responded by increasing military aid and deploying instructors, likely from the Africa Corps, which is a rebranded version of the Wagner Group. If you guys don't know what a Wagner Group is, it's a PMC, a private military company, or mercenaries, which are paid soldiers. Now, we'll have to do another video on the Wagner Group because they have they need their own show because they've done things negative and positive across the continent. And remember, I have no stance on this, but I'm going to report that to you guys. Well, leave a comment if you guys want to see that in the next video. Russian weapons and intelligence support have also helped Burkina Faso push back jihadist incursions in the Sahel region. One of the positive things that is good about having Russian military support, such as the Africa Corps or Wagner Group in this region. Now, he put his foot down in private briefings and he would tell the Russian officials, "You are a guest in my house, not a landlord," simply reminding them that don't think that just because I'm more open-minded to dealing with you than the West, that I'm going to allow you to dictate my country. He refused to sign permanent basing agreements with Russia and insists that all military assistance must include training of local forces and technology transfers, which is very important because a lot of these superpowers will actually come to nations and build up infrastructure, but they won't hire the locals, or they will put their military there, but not train the local military. So he's basically making sure that everybody gets a piece of the pie. Russia and China get something out of helping them, and he definitely is getting something out of them coming to assist the country. And from what it seems like, he wants more. He wants 51% and they get 49%, rather than how it has historically been with the Western nations like France, England, and United States, where the United States or those other countries may take 80%. Now, shit, that's being too generous. Maybe 90%, maybe even 95, maybe even 100%. And the country usually gets little to nothing in return. Now, China has been eyeing Burkina Faso for its lithium reserves. As I said before, these are things used to make batteries like the electric vehicle batteries, your cell phone. Lithium is very important for the advancement into the new age of technology, and the continent of Africa is rich in this mineral. They are trading this lithium that they're wanting from Burkina Faso for things like what the Chinese typically do, development and infrastructure. Traoré allowed limited partnerships, but he imposed strict terms to not fall into the same debt traps that the rest of the continent is falling into with the Chinese. Chinese companies, and this is very important, must employ at least 60% of locals for all the projects as far as labor goes. This is very important because if you guys have paid attention, the Chinese very often, more often than not, will say, hey, okay, this country has lithium here. They have diamonds that we want here. So we'll come develop your nations for these diamonds, and we'll do things like build the expressway or a railway or apartment buildings. The only thing is they will bring Chinese workers and they won't hire any locals a lot of times. Now, I'm noticing this is starting to change because here in Nairobi, you can see that there's some Chinese people that own buildings, and they do have obviously Kenyans. You can clearly see that they're Kenyans building the buildings. It's just Chinese owned, which is a more of a fair deal. Because if you come and you build, for example, in Dakar, Senegal, there's the statue with the man and the woman and the child. I've actually been myself and seen it. That was actually built by North Koreans. Keep that in mind. He also has a anti-corruption task force that reviews all contracts thoroughly. And to piggyback off of that, since he has that task force, he had to turn down a $1.2 billion Chinese loan at the end of 2024, citing it as a colonial style interest rate. And it had hidden clauses, which is pretty much what has been going on in the continent of Africa forever. But he actually has from what it seems, a non-corrupt team that wants to vet all the projects that will be going on to develop the country of Burkina Faso. A quote from Traoré is, "We want partners, not new masters." That includes China as well. And I had told you guys before, the West has been Africa's master for a pretty long time now, over 200 years. In some places, even in places like South Africa, damn near 500 years has been the master. But a lot of African nations are not realizing that they're just switching. Now, it may be better to switch to China, but you don't want to fall in the same trap. And it seems that he realizes that. And this is also what is putting a target on his back. So let's dive further into his resistance to neocolonialism, because now we know that there's always been neocolonialism in the West, and now it's essentially just shifted over to the East. And this does not limit it to China and Russia. This is also some Middle Eastern nations as well that we will be getting into in the future as well. But leave a comment if you want to see that. Traoré's anti-colonial vision is a pan-African and forward-looking strategy. He isn't just fighting France, he's also exposing neocolonial tactics from both East and West, as you can see. What he's done so far is he's expelled the French forces in 2023 and revoked all military accords, which essentially means if they have military bases, he's pretty much saying, we don't need you anymore. We have Russia here that's going to help us with this. He ended the operations of French media outlets like RFI and France 24 for spreading disinformation about Burkina Faso. Very important. Media is the biggest. Media can literally start revolutions and coups. You know, Hitler was able to commit the atrocity of the Holocaust through propaganda and media. So this is a very big step for him as well. He's also launched a historical education reform, such as new curriculum that teaches about African empires that have pretty much been wiped throughout history. If you guys don't know that there was a Great Wall of China in Nigeria that the British destroyed when they got there, but you would never know because this information has essentially been wiped clean. A lot of people don't know about Mansa Musa, who was the richest man in the world, who went broke from passing out all the gold, from what I heard. But you would have never known about the Mali Empire. You would have never known about Great Zimbabwe. New curriculum also teaches about colonial exploitation and modern day debt slavery, essential for the next generation to learn on their way up. He's also formed alliances with neighboring Sahel states in 2023, such as Mali and Niger, focused on mutual defense, joint currency talks, and economic sovereignty. If you guys don't know, this alliance goes hand in hand because Mali and Niger have also been colonized by the French, and they're also resisting the French. So I don't know this yet, you may see a union between these three countries. Some upcoming anti-colonial projects that he's working on. The Burkinabe Gold Bank, or the BGB, launching in 2026 to store gold reserves domestically, cutting reliance on French-controlled central banks. Burkina Faso Digital Independence Act, which is aimed at removing Western cloud and data servers from all government networks by 2027. And third, the Sahel Infrastructure Fund, a regional effort to fund roads, solar farms, and water projects without Western loans. And these three things that are in this infrastructure fund are key to the survival of a nation. Roads for shipping, transportation. You have to have roads. Solar farms for solar energy. If you guys don't know, the electric grids in Africa are pretty much horrible. Even places that are very developed like South Africa are known for having blackouts. So a solar farm will be an essential in this part of the world. And water projects, no nation has ever survived without water. So keep that in mind. Now, everything sounds so goody-goody, but you can't resist the colonial powers without there being pushback. So, of course, there's assassination attempts. He survived 18 assassination attempts, and literally at the end of April 2025, there was people, his own bodyguards tried to set him up to be assassinated. So there still is some level, everybody has a price, but there, except for him, it seems, but there's still always some level of corruption that is possible if somebody is incentivized enough. And this goes for his inner circle as well, as he just seen. In January 2023, a suspected poisoning plot was uncovered within his personal kitchen staff. I'm not sure how he caught that, but thank God he did. And as I stated, in April 2025, the government announced it foiled a foreign-backed coup plot linked to actors in Ivory Coast, possibly funded by outside intelligence networks. This could be a CIA, and I'm not saying it is. It could be CIA, or it could be some organization in Western Europe. We'll have to find out more in the future. In the summer of 2024, French media falsely reported that he had been killed, likely to sow chaos. The report was debunked within hours, gladly, and now you see this is why he had to take control of getting the French media out of Burkina Faso, because if you have somebody that's reporting fake news, you will soon lose control of your nation. Just another example of how powerful the media is. Think about 2020 during Black Lives Matter. Think about the January 6th insurrection of Capitol Hill. Those were all only possible due to media. What is his security strategy to avoid assassination attempts? He rarely sleeps in the same place more than 2 nights in a row, so he's constantly moving around. He uses decentralized communication networks to avoid surveillance. That could be, that could be him like using Tor to access the internet, using the deep web. I'm not sure. These are just ideas that I'm throwing out there. Encrypted communication services, essentially. His presidential convoy rotates vehicles and routes constantly, so he never rides in. He's never going to make it predictable to know what vehicle he's in or what route he's taking. And he tries his best to surround himself with loyal, ideological trained officers and not just bodyguards. And I say try his best because you can never guarantee loyalty. Internal threats. Not all opposition comes from abroad. Old elites, former generals. Remember, he did a coup to get power. And pro-Western media figures continue to push for his removal as a return to democracy. So essentially, they're trying to make him look like a dictator, when from my understanding, he hasn't done anything negative that dictators pretty much have done. And this should make you think how many leaders, not just in Africa, but around the world, have been made to look like evil dictators just so you wouldn't like them. For example, there was a leader in the Congo that was assassinated by the West and replaced with the guy that ruled for, what was it, like 60 years or 40 years in the Congo? We'll do a video on him as well. But he was made to look like an evil villain. So now that he's in power, he's avoiding death, he's doing reforms, he has the support of Russia and China. What does the future look like? What projects is he working on for Burkina Faso infrastructure-wise? What will Burkina Faso look like in the future? The future is focused on self-sufficiency, Pan-Africanism, and youth empowerment. From 2025 to 2027, some upcoming projects he has is the National Solar Energy Grid, which aims to electrify 60% of rural Burkina Faso using locally sourced solar panels. funded by the Alliance of the Sahel States. And I'm assuming that this is all funded by the minerals that they have in that region, which is why it's important that he is assuring that he signs the right deals with China that will come get these resources. So they actually have the money to fund this stuff, rather than not reading these scripts the right way or falling to corruption and China gets what they want and then they can't even fund a solar grid. That's usually what's been happening for decades. The African Youth Military Academy, a new Pan-African academy for ideological and tactical military training, opening in Ouagadougou in 2026. Sorry, I cannot pronounce that. Which is open to recruits from Mali, Niger, and Guinea. Pan-Africanism social media platform. In collaboration with tech entrepreneurs from Senegal and Kenya, which Kenya is very known for the tech industry, he plans to launch a social network independent from Meta or Google, which is a huge deal because those are the two biggest tech giants in the world when it comes to social media. If you guys don't know, Meta owns WhatsApp, Snapchat, Facebook. Google owns Google, YouTube, many things. So to do these outside of those two giants is a huge step. And the goal of this social media platform is to promote a censor-free African narrative platform. He also plans to draft a new constitution by 2026. He states drafting a people's constitution to replace colonial legal frameworks with indigenous African governance models. So we'll have to see what that turns out like. So in closing, my final thoughts. I would say he's not a perfect leader. Nobody's a perfect leader, but he's the most effective and important and most popular leader in Africa during this generation. I am in full support of what he's doing. I would love to see how this comes about. I admire his courage. I think it's interesting to see an African nation actually push back and align with the opposite side of the West and also push back against them while also trying to empower Africans, especially in his region, in the Sahel region, and pretty much the entire continent, and try to become a self-sufficient, self-governing, anti-colonialism nation. And you guys got to remember, he has to have a lot of courage to do this. He's fighting against terrorism, Western and Eastern colonialism, and internal insurgencies in his own government. So we might not know how long this will last because it is a lot of pressure, but I can tell you, I think it will have a dramatic effect on the continent, and hopefully it spreads a new trend for the continent of Africa to take control of itself once again. And I quote that he says, and one final quote from him himself, "You can kill the man, but the fire we've started in Burkina Faso will spread." As I said, even if this is cut short, it won't be the end of this trend. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you guys want to see more videos on expat life in Africa, I'm currently here in Kenya. Click the link in the first pinned comment or description and join the Patreon for my exclusive videos on my day-to-day life here in Kenya. Let me know what you thought about the video. Like and subscribe as always, and let me know what you want to see next.